Welcome back, everyone, to Inspector Toolbelt. Today we have on the crew from Inspector Media. They're going to help us today with social media strategies and just some suggestions on what we can do as home inspectors to improve our social media presence. So, ladies first, we have Michaela Cox, and we also
Hi.
have Daniel King.
How's it going, guys?
All right, well, welcome. I'm glad you guys both made the time to be on the show. No need to be nervous. I'm going to ask some hard hitting questions and some deep self searching information we want.
Absolutely.
Yep, social security
That's what I'm here
numbers.
for.
Yeah,
hmm
let us know everything, your deepest, darkest fears. I'm just kidding. There could be nothing lighter than social media. Social media was meant to be light and engaging, and it has morphed into
hmm
kind of this huge thing. And you guys have a mastery over it when it comes to the home inspection field. Before we get into that, tell us a little bit about yourselves, and we'll start again with Michaela. What do you do over there at Inspector Media?
Sure. Okay. Well, my fancy schmancy title is Chief Operating Officer. I've been with Inspector Media for, I believe, a year and a half, 2 years now, something along those lines. I pretty much take care of all customer service. I do a lot of the graphic design with clients. Pretty much anytime anyone has a question or has something that needs taken care of, chances are I'm the one doing it. So.
Very nice. Daniel was describing you as the rock earlier of the company.
Yes.
So
Definitely the glue. Definitely the glue.
nice. And how about you, Daniel? What do you do over there at Inspector Media?
I guess the title is VP of operations. I really focus on the front end of everything.
Mhm.
I handle, the education portion when, home inspectors either, raise their hand and says, hey, can you help me with this? Or they come from, InterNACHI through some kind of form that they filled out or just coming us to, directly. My job is just to kind of really focus on the benefits. And really, I don't specialize in the home inspection industry, but I've been in this space, part of the home buying process now since, 2006. The majority of my career has been working with real estate agents, doing somewhat the same as what I do here for, Inspector Media. So.
Great. So guys both obviously have a lot of experience in our market. You work directly with and under Nick, who owns the company, and you guys know what works and what doesn't on social media for home inspectors all across the board. And we're not talking about, hey, I know what works in my local market. We're talking US, Canada,
Mhm.
possibly other places, I don't know, of of what actually works in our industry. So tell me a little bit too, because Daniel, you actually help out or run Bizvelt as well.
I don't run it. So Bizvelt it's a form. It's a completely free form that Nick and Ben created. It's got the built-in AI, a lot of resources, asks you questions, and based off those answers, it'll give you some articles and then ask another question, and based off of those. Anybody that says, yeah, and it's a wide range. A lot of the home inspectors that come to us through the BizVela form are guys that are saying, yes, I know social media is important. Can you have someone give me a call? And it's not necessarily saying, hey, I'm looking for someone to provide a service. It's that they're looking for help. Right.
Mhm.
So I get, those come to me and they're not just new home inspectors. They're also home inspectors that are trying to scale, that are either saying, hey, what do I need to do with my brand to increase my prices? When is a good time to hire, a new home inspector, and how to scale, how to get that new home inspector, or they'll just say, hey, I've hired some guys and I need to make sure that, I'm getting enough calls. What else can I do?
Nice, great. So I guess that kind of leads into one of the first points that I wanted to bring out, because I was talking with a home inspector a couple months ago when we first started talking about doing this particular subject on the podcast, and he called me and he said, "Ian, I think the social media thing is starting to get big. And I thought he was joking. And I'm like, yeah, it definitely is. And then he was serious. He's like, I think we need to start taking advantage of it. I'm like, and I knew the guy really well. So I'm like, I think we're about 15 years behind the curve on that one, but we can catch up.
Right.
And he kind of laughed because he was thinking, hey, it's just Facebook,
Mm-hmm.
or hey, it's just LinkedIn. But there, social media is just, it's everywhere. We're all,
Absolutely.
yeah, and we're all on it basically in one form or another, whether we like to know it or not.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like Googling
Yeah.
yourself. It's kind of a little bit disconcerting, the information that's
Yeah.
out there on you, you
Mm-hmm.
know? So, in your opinions, why do you think a home inspector needs to, first of all, have a social media presence? And then maybe we can get into some of the nitty gritty that can help home inspectors in their day to day with it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so this, I was kind of telling you a little bit about this before, and then I'll let Michaela go. But in 2006, I started with a company called housevalues.com, which sold out to Trulia, which is now Zillow today. And, back in 2006, the big push was getting real estate agents to understand that paper advertisement was starting to die. Not that they shouldn't do it, right? But really knowing how to assess your marketing, knowing how to assess what you're about to get into. And that way you can assess what the ROI is and, if it hit what you were hoping for. So it's kind of funny, and again, it may sound funny. 2006, though, all the way 2006 all the way to 2010, it was rather hard, especially during the crash, to paint the pictures of what we think the internet is going to look like for a business owner, especially. And this is something that I always try to drive home with my home inspectors. If you're offering a service to the community, right, as a business owner, but you're not reaching the community, is there room for disconnect there, right? And that's how it was with real estate agents, and now today, obviously fast forwarding, if a real estate agent told you that they don't, do anything as far as marketing or the internet, it's either because they've been in the business for 30 years, right? Or they're just a real estate agent because they like the title, right? So what's funny is now fast forwarding, especially a lot of the newer inspectors that I talk to, I'm having somewhat of that same conversation, day in and day out about social media, right? And so social media, as our younger, even for a home inspector to start a business 10 years ago, even 5 years ago, it's different. It was different then as it is today, right? And it's going to be different in another couple of years. But the one thing that hasn't changed is social media growing, right? And as our younger generation has gotten older, we personally as individuals, we don't get to decide, what tools are best used for business. We just don't. As a community, we do, right? And as a society, we do. But I do have a couple crazy statistics that I found on NAR. And it was millennials now make up of 43% of the home buyers in this last year, 43%. And that's an increase of 37% last year to 18% the year before. Generation X, this was whatever, but Generation X also was, they bought the most expensive homes at the median price of $320,000. So the study found that 4 out of 5 younger millennials, okay, 4 out of 5 were purchasing the homes, 4 out of 5, right, of the younger. And then 48% of the older half. So, and then for Gen Z.
So you can say it because I'm a geriatric millennial. That's what they call us. So
Okay, all right.
That's
Yeah,
anywhere between.
I think I made millennial I think I'm at the cutoff. So I'm
I am too.
37. I'm pretty, yeah.
Oh, you're a geriatric millennial too. Yeah.
Oh no, I should have said 36.
There you go.
Would that change? But so they predict. So Gen Z is 1997 to 2012. Okay, their buying power is growing, and in the year of 2026, they will have the highest based off of all the, data coming up. And they think that Gen Z will own 53% of the home buying. So my biggest thing of talking about these statistics is it's like, and this is kind of, I'm going to take this old school. And when I ask my real estate agents, I'm always like, if you have your marketing budget, right, and you were to cut it in some pies, some pieces of pie, who are you trying to target, right? Because paper advertisement is targeting low income and senior citizens now, right? So with a home inspector, we're going after whatever the game plan is, whether it's, whoever, right? Typically real estate agents and home buyers, who are we going after, right? Who's doing that? And who's going to be doing that here in the future? So social media is, to answer your question and kind of bring it back around. I know I kind of went off a tangent there, but social media is absolutely huge, and the good news is my experience, our experience here at Inspector Media, the good news is most home inspectors are not using it to grow their business. So what that means is that there's definitely probably a good opportunity, like the early bird gets the worm situation.
Yeah.
I think that's well said, and those are some pretty fantastic statistics that you shared with us. I think that paints the picture of what we're actually talking about here. Not enough home inspectors take advantage of it. Some guys will say, "Hey, I have a Facebook page," or "Hey, my niece started a TikTok," and okay, great, but they're not really. They have a tool, but they're not using that tool.
Yeah.
So there's a big gap. And what are your thoughts on that, Michaela?
Really, Daniel kind of hit all of the points that I would have made in answering the question. But yeah, it really is a shame that more people the more inspectors specifically don't recognize the importance of it. And the argument that most people have with me when I'm trying to, explain why social media is good or whatever. And the argument that I tend to hear a lot is, well, I just don't like it. And, it's all this mess. I don't blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, you're kind of defending my point in a way, because it's like, you don't like it because it's so ingrained in your everyday life. Yeah. So that's exactly why you should be using it.
And, I do have to put a plug in here for Inspector Media. We have worked with you guys since the beginning. We worked very closely with your founder, Eric, who we miss dearly. And we have loved everything that you do. What you guys do for home inspectors is very specific to them and very effective. It's what's called top of funnel. So we always talk about marketing funnels. It's just a colloquial way of saying, hey, the bottom of the funnel is them hiring you. How do you get people into the funnel down to that point where they hire you? You guys are top of funnel. You're capturing all these people. It's like walking in, 100 years ago, walking into the town square where it's all busy and you're just shoving people into the shop. And now it's up to the shop owner. Okay, now I'm going to seal this deal and sell this. That doesn't exist anymore. Everybody's on their phone, even if they were in the public squares. So they're all on social media. So you guys do a fantastic job of that. So I do have to say that. We do social media. Yeah, I wouldn't say it if I didn't mean it. We do social media posting, but we only do it for SEO reasons. Yeah. So we're not doing the same strategies anywhere near what you guys are doing. That's also another point, is a lot of guys want to increase their SEO without doing anything with social media. And in today's day and age, that actually doesn't really work. The Google algorithm reads Facebook into its algorithm, Instagram, LinkedIn. We actually submit everybody's social media to Google so it can recognize, okay, it's part of its structured data. This is where their social media is. Oh, okay, good. So that's all on the back end and front end of websites. So if we want SEO.
I describe to clients a lot I say this all the time, that I'm like, social media is almost in a way, it's like an organic SEO builder.
Yeah.
So that's right on the nose.
Yeah, exactly. It builds traffic and then it's also built into the back end technical stuff. Yeah. So for inspectors that often say, I don't need social media, I really think Daniel's statistics really showed why. What person under 25 doesn't have any social media? I haven't met one yet.
Even the ones that don't like it have it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, exactly. And then even you go even older than that.
Mhm.
My mother is, oh man, she's going to listen to this and then realize I don't know how old she is. I think she's 69. She's on social media, and so are all of her sisters and brothers. And,
Mhm.
they're going to be using things like Facebook, and the younger ones are going to be using things like TikTok and Instagram. And, you know, the geriatric millennials were kind of in the middle, me and Daniel.
Yeah,
um,
yeah, yeah.
so it's
You know, sorry, another thing to point out too is that those statistics were for home buyers, right? Well, we didn't even scratch the surface of those statistics and what that looks like for young professionals coming into real
Mhm.
estate,
oh yeah,
right?
totally.
So again, my biggest thing is who are we targeting? Because especially I totally, there's enough info on the internet that anybody, that's a great thing about social media. It's free. Anybody can do it, right? Some people are going to be better than others just because they've gotten used to it and whatnot. But most of the time, home inspectors don't do it because it's not something they grew up with, right? Or it's not something that they, want to spend time with or whatnot. I'm that guy. I can't stand social media. My wife's on it all the time and it drives me crazy.
Talk
I
about
don't
irony.
care what people think about, Trump or what their dogs are wearing and stuff like that. But what it's done is it's given us a tool that, quite frankly, has never been offered in business, so freely,
Yep.
Yeah.
and so, Ian, I just want to mention, so I put together just just so that your listeners, right, if just one home inspector is like, hey, you know what, I'm going to try this out, right, but they're not sure what to do, I created just a little couple links that I'll send you so that you can post somewhere, for the video.
Oh yeah.
And one of the videos is how does social media, prove my SEO? Because
Mhm.
again, a lot of home inspectors, they're, SEO ranking, Google ranking, so that was one, followed by a couple other links that can also show some important things that, that I feel, that'll definitely help if they want to at least try this on their own.
Awesome. I'll put a link to that in the transcript. So if you're listening to this, look in the transcript of this podcast and you can download that. Thank you very much. I remember you telling me about that, and I think that's a fantastic resource. So
Yeah.
let's get to the nuts and bolts, because let's say we are a home inspector that says I don't need social media or I don't want it. I think we've blown that right out of the water. We need it. It's the
Yes.
biggest marketing hammer out there. And if you're
Mhm.
not using it, we're just missing out. But now let's talk about the flip side of that. Some social media strategies. So I would recommend checking out Inspector Media. But if we want to do it on our own,
Mhm.
there's some do's and don'ts that we want to really take into consideration.
Sure.
Because what I often see, and maybe you guys see this, a guy will say, "Hey, I already have a social media strategy," and I'll look at it and I'll be mortified. Like, I'm not going to be crude, but sometimes when they go into an attic and somebody's hidden some inappropriate items up there, and they'll take a picture of it and put a caption,
Mhm.
and then it's all over their business page. I'm like,
Mhm.
Jeez.
oh my goodness, that is terrible.
Yeah.
Or I've seen that,
Wow.
or other times where
Hey,
they're
good for them for posting.
well, uh, man, at that
Step
point,
one was
Not
accomplished.
that,
yeah,
but
not that, yeah, or like political stuff or polarizing information.
Yeah.
One guy
Mhm.
was posting bad stuff about one national group versus another.
Oh.
This was a couple years ago, and I'm like, oh my goodness, we need to keep it in a lot of ways vanilla pudding. If
Mhm.
somebody serves you
Yep.
vanilla pudding, you're not excited. You're not like,
Mhm.
yay, this is controversial dessert. But you're also not offended. Like, why did you give me vanilla pudding? It's just like, oh, it's there.
I
Mhm.
Okay.
I would be ecstatic if you gave me vanilla pudding.
Yeah, right. So
I'm
everybody's,
a vanilla pudding guy.
yeah, most people are happy about vanilla pudding, but they're not
Mhm.
offended by it either.
Mhm.
Let's post that on Facebook and see who can argue that. It's like that metaphorical. You put a picture of a rock on Facebook and say people will argue about this, and then it's the
Mhm.
eternal: is it a rock or is it a stone? You know.
Oh yeah, that's funny.
So let's get into the nuts and bolts here.
Sure.
First of all, guys are always asking, what social media platforms should I be on? And I see a lot of guys. I saw one guy rocking it on MySpace. I'm like, that's not the.
Okay.
That's not. I didn't know that was still around. Um,
I didn't either. That was
so
surprising to me.
yeah. So I'm like, yeah, I think you're a little behind. So
Had a few
my
years maybe.
yeah minus. And again, we're not. I'm the type of guy too where I was just saying before the show, I'm like, every time I turn around, there's a new platform, there's a new
Mm-hmm.
technology.
Yeah.
Beyond our co-host of the show, he's always like, Ian, let's try out this new technology. And I'm like, I'm just tired. you know,
Yeah.
so I get it. It's not that we don't want to do it, but sometimes we just want to make sure that if we have to do it, we put our blows where it matters. So where
Yep.
does it matter in your guys' opinion? What platforms should guys be on?
I got this, Daniel. I think for in general, when it comes to social media marketing, it fully depends on, of course, the market you're in, like who you're aiming for, what industry you're working in. But when we're talking about home inspectors, it's a little bit easier to get kind of specific. And where I'm going to say it's not specific is that you also have to really take into consideration what your goals are as a brand and how you want people to look at you and view you. And that's kind of that point will be kind of a resounding thing. I will sound like an alarm or something that just keeps going off and saying that, because I think that is so important that every aspect of your marketing strategy needs to be thought out in the sense of how do I want people to view me and view my brand. So when it comes to what platforms you should be using, every single platform has something that makes it unique, special, different. MySpace being that it's completely outdated. Don't use it. But you say something like Instagram, the thing that makes it so unique is that it is completely photo based. None of the other platforms are really like that. Twitter, the fact that it's so short and quippy and you need to have, quick information. You got to be concise and you got to be entertaining enough that people are going to actually see your content. Facebook is much more broad. LinkedIn is more towards professionals, but my point is just that they're all different. But if you know what your goals are, it's easier to kind of make that decision. But for those who are just getting started in the inspection industry or just getting started on social media as an inspector, my top two recommendations are always Facebook and LinkedIn, because that kind of covers all your bases. Facebook is a necessity, kind of point blank, period. There is no industry where I'm going to tell you that I don't think you should be on Facebook. LinkedIn, I think, is really important just because of that networking aspect. You shouldn't look at LinkedIn as your main form of income and where you're going to be, getting a lot of business necessarily. That's more for Facebook. But I would argue that LinkedIn is such a good place to network. And if you are a serious professional and want your business to grow, then you know how important networking is.
Yeah, and that's also where I find personally a
Mm-hmm.
lot of agents hang out. So if we're
Yes.
targeting
Yes.
Oh
agents,
yeah.
they're going to be on Facebook because
Absolutely.
that's where a lot of their buyer sets are often going to be. We were looking it up beforehand. It was like 2.8 billion people, active
Yep.
users monthly on Facebook. I mean, that's huge. That's over a third of the world's population on Facebook. Do you want to
Mm-hmm.
skip out on one third of the world's population? You know,
Yeah,
so
yeah. And to add to that, so with Facebook, 80% of those people, okay, and these stats are, you can Google these stats. Also, Social Media Revolution, where I get a lot of my statistics. It's a great channel to follow on YouTube. But 80% of Facebook users, they use it from their mobile device,
mhm.
right? And so another thing is to, ask yourself, how mobile friendly do I want my business to be? If someone is searching for something, that matches, a service that I offer, can they accidentally stumble across me, and again, not doing what we're talking about is doing something. And what that something is you're doing a favor for your competitor, right? For the company that started their business before you, that probably knows a little bit more about the business than you. And that might sound a little harsh, but when we go to inspection conventions, whether it's Nathan's, or IGO, or Internachi's, without fail, every single, person that's speaking, top earner, platinum, whatever, it is at the time, always say the same thing. And I love my competition, because they haven't adapted, to the change of times. Something to add to Michaela, something that we didn't, no one's brought up yet, is Google My Business.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
That's huge. That's huge.
Yeah.
And it's free. It's free. It can be a pain in the, butt to get started, but it's free. And if you do it correctly, you will be rewarded. And in fact, if you're working on your local SEO, right, that is the place to start. And if you search for this, do a quick search, in Google, what's the best way to improve my Google My Business page? Something very, very simple, right? And they have their answer is if you set it up correctly, you will on average earn 7 times the amount of clicks.
Oh, yeah.
Right? If you set it up correctly. And then as far as, strategies, if we were to say, okay, you know what, I'm going to do this. This is the advice that I give, my, anyone that we're talking to. I always tell them, find your strategy. First of all, if you're going to start to do this, you're going to roll up your sleeves and, rip off the Band-Aid. Okay. Get past the fear. Okay. A little bit of fear is better than regret later down the road. Right. You're starting a business or you've been a business owner. Fear is something that we should all be able to, overcome. But, get your strategy. Who am I targeting and how do I pique their interest? Consistency, posting consistent, even if you're just starting with Facebook, be consistent, right? It doesn't have to be mind blowing. It doesn't have to be all that,
Vanilla pudding.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And have value, have value, right? Have value in the content. Maybe the value is for this particular post, what are some things that first home buyers, you don't know, or what are some great things, that's a strategy. Who am I targeting? First home buyer. Boom. What's a way to come up with that content? Well, I always tell guys, again, once you find out who you're looking for, right, who you're targeting with your post, because your post should be very on purpose. If you're creating something that says, and just to make sure, vanilla doesn't mean, hey guys, it's a great day for a home inspection, and call that content. Because I've seen that. Yeah, I've seen that content.
That's sugar-free pudding. That's no good.
Yeah,
nobody likes that. Yeah, nobody eats that stuff.
But also you can be entertaining. You see something. It doesn't have to, be a Dave Chappelle joke. And it also doesn't have to be, whatever joke. But inspirational content's great. And connection, right? Make sure that you're trying to connect with who you're going after.
Yeah. It's
those are our top strategies that we use.
And those are fantastic strategies. And you brought out something that we brought out in the podcast last week about engagement. Create content that engages people, like have a little contest or, hey, you guys want to caption this picture? And I always find if we question if we should post it, we probably shouldn't. So going back to that inappropriate stuff, keep it vanilla pudding, something that nobody's going to be offended by. But there was a guy years ago. He's like, I don't want any of this social media garbage and this and that. And finally, I got to do it. My wife says I got to do it. And I'm like, okay. He's like, how do I start? And I always tell guys the same thing. You have to become a 13-year-old girl online. Yes. They're posting all sorts of stuff all the time. They're doing a little selfie. If there's a dance, they're doing it. And I'm like, we had Bob Madewell on a while back, and he does this little dance he calls the Babalooey. And everybody loves it. I like it, actually. It's kind of entertaining. There's nothing offensive by it. He's standing in front of this house, and he's tagging agents. It's engaging. We don't have to.
So people like that.
Yeah, people like that. We don't have to be goofy. If that's not our MO, okay, I'm not a goofy guy. But you find a mummified squirrel in the attic. That's cool. That's cool. I'm sorry. I'm going to look at every mummified squirrel that somebody posts online. And it's also like a car accident. You can't not look at it.
Mhm.
It's engaging. You find a bullet in the roof, take a picture. You're posting that online. You find something cool.
Mhm.
It becomes mundane to us as home inspectors. It, I've seen so much stuff that I don't even think about it. So sometimes we have to force ourselves to say, "Oh, you know what? That is kind of cool. Let me post that. That'd be neat."
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah. So you have to become a
Right.
13-year-old
That
girl.
actually kind of touches. Yeah, yeah. That actually kind of touches on a point I made earlier where I was basically saying you want your content to reflect who you are as a person. And I just kind of want to reiterate that and um, express that even if you are uncomfortable with getting started with social media and just feel like, that isn't you, that's not the type of person you are, that's okay. Eventually you'll figure out a way to reflect your own personality into the content that you're putting out and into your own marketing plans. If you're a funny guy and you are goofy, do your dances and post memes, post jokes, do that kind of thing. People like that. If you're not, maybe if you lean more towards I really care about educating my clients. Post videos of you talking about what you're doing and like explaining things that are wrong with the house, things of that nature. There's all different routes that you can take that are high quality content that have value, but still reflect who you are as an individual and as a business owner.
Yeah. Well said. Very
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah.
So,
That's coming from tens of thousands of posts that she's created.
yeah.
So,
So she knows what she's talking
I like to
So,
think so.
so I guess that goes back because you guys said post regularly.
Mhm.
I
mhm.
get asked this a lot. How often should I post? Is what a lot of home inspectors ask. What's your opinion?
I think
My
every day.
Say that again, Daniel.
I think every day. Again, on certain platforms. We don't
Yeah.
have to every day, like Google My Business. You don't need to. But yeah, every day.
And algorithmically, for that makes me sound fancy when I say algorithmically, but like I know what I'm talking about here. But if you do that, Facebook will actually churn your post up more often. It's found
Yeah.
the more regularly you
Yeah.
post, the more,
Authority.
yeah, it'll give you more authority. So if we're posting once
Mhm.
a week, you might get, let's say, hypothetically 50 views of that one post. But if you post 5 times a week, your engagement will go up and it'll be 65 times per post.
Mm-hmm.
It matters. And I
Yep.
just
Yeah.
and I just want to add too that there's also what we call customer journey. So what you're posting matters not only to people who are on social media at the time, but I don't think I've hired anybody without checking out their Facebook page or even going to a restaurant before I looked at I'm like, oh, they have a YouTube channel. I'm going to look at this. People are looking at what you post and we're all
Yes.
very offended very quickly. And we're like, oh, I'm not going to go there because they said this, or we don't want anything.
Mhm.
We don't want anything polarizing, but we also want to have content there. I actually didn't hire a mason one time because he had a Facebook page, but the last post he did was in 2017. And I'm like, I don't even know if he's in business. So I moved on. He'll never know the
Yep.
lead he lost
Yep.
because it's not
Right.
regular. Okay. So every
And
day, if you can, what's a minimum number? So let's say we're just getting into this, we're getting our feet wet. Um, what's a good minimum amount, do you think, per
what do you
week?
think, Michaela? Because I'm going to say every day again.
Honestly, I think that okay. So if you're getting started, maybe I would encourage you to take it a little bit slower just to get in the feel of creating good content because it is very easy to cross the line of worrying about posting so much that you're no longer posting anything worth looking at.
Hmm.
And
Yes.
that's also something I wanted to point out to any listeners that are like, okay, I need to be posting like constantly all the time. Yes, you should be posting every day, but should you be posting multiple times a day? That is where things start to get questionable because maybe it's not the issue of are people going to see the content, but it becomes the issue of people are going to unfollow you and block you if you become annoying to their feed.
That is a beautiful
So
point because I have done that to so many people. I'm
yes,
like,
it
this is
happens.
your eighth post today, and I am blocking you. I'm done.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's the thing you want to avoid. You got to kind of find the happy medium. I mentioned this earlier, I do the customer service. So I'm talking to clients all day, all the time. Everybody has different opinions and gets different reactions from their individual clientele, from the area they're at. So we always got to kind of figure out what works for each client. But my point in saying that is I've heard from people that, oh, the amount we post is too much for the people that I'm giving my content to, or it's not enough. Really don't feel like you're doing anything wrong by asking or like actually interacting with anybody that would see your Facebook page. So say you have your business page and you have a friend, who follows your page, ask them after you've been doing it for a while. Be like, hey, what do you think? Do you think I'm posting too much? Am I posting not enough? Do you like the content I'm putting out? There's nothing wrong with asking for help, even if it's from someone who's an amateur that just uses social media, for fun. I think it's always good to ask more questions.
And I agree
No,
with
that's
you.
good.
Yeah, and I agree with you because a lot of times we ask other home inspectors, "Do you like
Mhm.
this?" And they're like, "You didn't." Our favorite key phrase on this show is hydrostatic pressure. They're like, "You didn't post enough about hydrostatic pressure. You should have a longer post." We're not attracting home inspectors.
Yes.
They're not our
Mhm.
clients. So go ask the
That is the
people.
wrong person to ask.
Yeah, go ask the
Mhm.
27-year-old who might be looking for a house. Hey, do you think I post too much? Ask the agents.
Yeah.
Do you like the
Yeah.
content? If we ask other home inspectors, we'll get the wrong advice because they're not because they don't know, but because they're
Mhm.
not the clients we're going for. We don't
Yes.
want their business. So,
Mhm.
Ian, I'd like to ask you a question.
oh
Okay.
yeah, okay.
So,
Welcome
yeah.
to Inspector Toolbelt
So,
with Daniel King. Just kidding.
yeah.
Let's
Yeah.
do
No,
this.
really, really, because I love getting perspective, man. So do you, when you still inspect, correct?
I have not set foot on an inspection in several months. Yeah,
So, oh, okay. So that's recent, somewhat recent,
yeah,
right?
yeah. We've just
Okay.
gotten so busy.
Mhm.
The app and our websites have blown up. I still have.
Congratulations.
Oh, thank you. I still have people
Yeah.
inspecting, but I don't personally inspect anymore. I
So
miss it.
did you ever offer or ask to follow other real estate agents' social media pages?
In what way? Like ask to like. Typically, they leave it
Let's say
open so
you're
you can just follow them. So I
right,
follow a lot
right.
of real estate agent pages. Yeah,
Mhm.
hundreds or
Okay, good.
thousands.
That's good. So I've always, because there's certain things, that I try to have guys do, right? And one of them is follow, because again, when you're going and you're doing your presentation, you're dropping off your brochure, whatever it is that you're doing,
Hmm.
um, that business card can be lost and forgotten. The brochure can be lost and forgotten. But if you pull out your cell phone, right, and this is my question, what you think about this, if you pull out your cell phone and just quickly find them and make it a point to show, right, in my mind, because I've been on the real estate side, real estate is so doggone competitive. Every single real estate agent is worried about the other real estate agent in their office having more followers, more likes, more views, more everything,
Hmm.
right? So my thought is, when you're going out and you're prospecting, and I guess this is more towards the new home inspector, right? But when you're prospecting, make it a point to pull out your phone and give them a follower,
Oh yeah.
because there's the first perk, right? That's the very first perk of doing business. It may seem very small and minute, right? But what is that going to resonate to 6 months down the road when they see that you're posting and they see that you're building your following, and they're now following you because you're following them, and that's called community engagement, right?
Mhm.
So why not, right? I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
you're going to be going around painting the city anyways. Why not ask? And again, obviously you can just do it anyways, but what happens there is they in turn follow you, right? And now they see that you're posting content, very regularly. And I call that the next man up theory, because not only that, it gives you the permission of following up with them without having to call, hey, and still call, right? I'm not going to tell a home inspector not to, prospect the way they do, but little things like that. If you're going to start to jump into social media, really focus on that following, because that's something that we all haven't really spoke about yet is that following, because you can post and post and post and post and post. No one's going to see it unless, people are following, right?
So I see your point. I'm going to raise you one. because
Okay.
the following of the agents in the offices has always been a fantastic tactic. So what happens in addition to that is anytime I do an office meeting, everybody in that room, I'd follow their page, and about half of them would follow mine back.
Absolutely.
I'd engage with them, and I'd thank them online and tag their office because their office will typically have a page too. Thank you
Mhm.
guys for having me. Post a picture of all of them. Then other offices that I followed and followed me would see that, and they'd want me to come do another presentation.
Mhm.
And anytime we had a new presentation, it would just spiral in a good way because they're like, "Oh, Ian was over at Coldwell Banker. I thought he liked us better." And then the broker would jokingly say, "I thought you liked us better over here at Keller Williams." "Oh, it's okay. Yeah, I'll come do one
Oh,
for you."
that's perfect.
And it just keeps rotating and rotating. And then, when you're engaging with people, they're like, "Oh, you don't like Ian online, or you're not his friend online." And then they'd friend me, and then I friend them back. It really is awesome, which actually brings up a warning that I have. So you guys probably see a lot of this. Guys follow real estate agent pages, and they just bug the snot out of them.
Oh yeah.
So
Yeah.
every time there's a listing, they're like, "Great house, contact 123 home inspections, and here's my phone number." Every post that they do, they're just blasting them.
Mhm.
That that just
Yeah.
that just ticks the agent off because you're stealing their thunder. What do you think is a good way to for a home inspector to engage instead of doing stuff like that?
Yeah, I got a really good one. I don't mean to steal the show. I'm super passionate about this stuff. I
Yeah,
love it.
yeah, me too.
So I tell everyone I talk to, whether they're doing it or they're paying someone to do it, or their social media, every single home, and this is kind of in the same realm, right? A good way to engage with real estate agents. Every home that you inspect, go to the sidewalk. Maybe it takes 2 minutes your first time that you do this. Go to the sidewalk, take a picture of the home. Okay. And when you post it, tag the listing agent and tag the buyer's agent.
Oh yeah,
That's it. And by doing that, you're doing a lot. I mean, we could spend a whole podcast on why that's important, but really what's happening here, regardless of what your relationship is with the listing agent or the buyer's agent, what's happening here is you're promoting their business,
Mhm.
right? You're putting them in front of because again, a six-figure earning real estate agent, the way they look at things is they have X amount of marketing dollars, which produces X amount of traffic, views, whatever, or X amount of, traffic to their website, which, is X amount of this, right? They have their equation, right? But when you have people following you in the community, and some guys have thousands, some guys have hundreds, right? Obviously, this is just a nice gesture if you only have a few followers, but everyone starts somewhere. But by doing that, you're putting them in front of more people in the community, right? You're promoting their business. And that's another perk of doing business with you that they might not be getting from their current home inspectors.
And that's beautiful. I'm glad you mentioned that because that is exactly what I tell guys to do too. Because now, even if you had say it was a rough inspection and that listing agent is just reeling over you, kind of hard for them to stay mad when you're like, "Hey, Tina
Yeah.
at Keller Williams, it was great inspecting the house and working with you today." You can still
Mhm.
do your job, and that kind of actually helps calm it down. That is one of the best strategies. And then it also paints a picture for people. You're posting and they're just seeing house after house after house after house that you inspect.
Right.
Maybe you only did 4, but in their minds, "Oh man, it looks like they did 100 houses last week. They must be really good." Now you're painting the picture. And then when people look you up online, potential clients, "Oh wow, yeah, he's doing lots of inspections. He's in the neighborhood. Oh, that's in the neighborhood I'm buying in." There's a lot of reciprocal benefit that happens there.
Mhm.
That's a great one for Instagram to go to follow up with, what Michaela was saying about, visual. I look at Instagram and I call it that visual resume for a home inspector.
That's a great
Mm.
way to describe it. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
I'm going to steal that though. It's a
Yeah,
visual because that really,
totally fine.
yeah, it really is a visual resume, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, we
Can
kind
put
of
that in quotation marks. Daniel King.
Daniel King. um, so I think we kind of covered some things we want to avoid. Anything controversial.
Mhm.
We have a policy at our company. We do not post anything political, religious, anything that could ever be in the scope of any imagination be controversial. And then avoid anything that's overly personal, to people's houses and things like that. And keep a vanilla pudding, and make sure that your visual resume, I think that's great. Pretend like would we put that on a resume with a job? Would we want them to see that?
Mhm.
Can I add something to that actually? Not only is this is just another little warning. Not only should you be worried about what you're posting being, quote, vanilla, you should also be aware of what you're interacting with,
Hmm,
because the stuff that you like, share, comment on, the people that you follow, that stuff is also available for people to see. So
good call.
you're talking about your business page. We're talking about your reputation here. It is not just what you post. It is also what you interact with. So you should also be wary of those kind of situations.
That's a fantastic point because, we all have our personal feelings on things.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And, hey, I believe in this organization and I'm pumped and this is what I do and I'm going to support them. Okay. But if that alienates 10% of our clients, well, that's good. They're gone. I'm like, okay, but they still had US tender. Then they would have
Yeah.
paid you to look at the
What's your
pipes in the roof.
priority here?
Yeah.
Mhm.
So keep that maybe on the personal side of things. We want our
Yes.
business. That's a fantastic point. So I have,
Yeah.
go ahead.
No, I was just going to say the big bow to all of this, and none of us, I don't think if one of us said it, but really what we're doing here is we're really focused on brand.
Mhm.
This is the tool for brand, because this is where everybody is getting their opinions or first interactions, seeing logos, getting feelings with your post. This is that spot to really build that brand. And especially guys that are new. I talk to a lot of guys that like we just signed up someone that's a huge home inspection business, multiple inspectors. And I was amazed. I mean, he was doing social media, so like hats off to him. But there wasn't much as far as brand. And Michaela was the one that pointed us out on that. When you focus on your brand, because again, a lot of home inspectors that I talk to, they're really, really focused on today's inspection, right? How am I getting one today? Who's going to give me one today and tomorrow? That they look past really focusing on that brand, or maybe they don't know what that brand means, or how to build that brand.
You're not thinking long term.
Yeah.
Yeah. One my biggest piece of advice for everyone in here, based off of the experience that I've had, is guys get those inspections when they focus on brand. That like running around, looking at these lead generation companies, I don't know, some good, some bad, I don't know. But when we do that, we kind of take our focus off of the brand, because we're looking at right now, versus if you focus on building that brand, right, everything around you starts to convert at a higher level, right? Your website is converting, your interactions with your real estate agents face to face. I mean, everything just seems to start, flowing and connecting, and so that, again, brand building is probably our biggest focus, when we get into, doing social media, as far as the purpose, and then all the other benefits, from doing that, kind of fall into place.
So that's actually a great lead into our last question too, because we talked about that last week, Beon and I, that there's three basic columns to your marketing campaign. First is going to be marketing, then advertising, then lead generation. Advertising and lead generation are dead end roads. You get the lead is done.
Right.
Advertising, you send out the coupon's done. Whatever advertising you have,
Mm-hmm.
send out the pamphlet. Marketing is the branding that you're talking about. It's where we expand on things. So that leads me to the last question of why is it pretty much, in my opinion, near impossible to measure ROI on social media? Because I hear guys say that all the time. I had a guy shut down his Facebook page, shut down his Instagram, and he had all this stuff and all this content, and he just erased it. He's like, I never got one lead off of that.
Mm-hmm.
So why is that wrong
And
thinking?
that's the issue. I think and I'm going to say this very confidently, because the ROI, man, I can't even tell you how many times I've had this conversation.
Every day,
Yeah.
at least once.
in order to measure your ROI, before you get into whatever it is that you're doing, you need to assess that first. What am I expecting, right? Your ROI doesn't necessarily need to be dollars. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I always tell guys, because we used to let guys just sign up, and just, yeah, free, go ahead and sign up, and then we figured out we need to be having conversations, right? We need to be talking about and educating what this looks like, because, again, you're a home inspector, you're a business owner first and a home inspector second, right? And some of the best home inspectors might not have that part. As you can tell, the Bizvelt form, this is what I, work on a lot of newer guys, but even the multi-inspector firms do that form, but going into it, right? What is this? What am I wanting out of this? And then once you know what you want out of it, you need to find out if that's what it can do. Once you find out that that's what it can do, then you can correctly assess it. But if you're going to, and this happened, I have this conversation all the time, you're not afraid to promote, right? And you try this, and then you try that, and then you try that. My hat goes off to you. I think that's awesome. I think that you should. I think every business should have a marketing budget, and there should be just a little piece of pie that's risk, to figure out what works, what's working and what's not working. Yeah. And so with the ROI, right? Don't assess it after 4 weeks. Don't assess it after 2 weeks, right? It's not a slot machine, it's something that you assess quarterly, right? And maybe even in some cases, depending on what's going on in your market, maybe every 6 months, right? Mm-hmm. But for me, measuring the ROI, I think is near impossible with marketing, branding and whatnot, because it's hard to really find out what, who's looking at what, right?
If you're asking for what the ROI is on your social media marketing, then you're already asking the wrong question. You already don't fully understand what the point is of the social media marketing.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. It's not lead generation. That's a completely different column under the marketing umbrella. If it's like, well, I don't have my logo on my shirt because I never got anybody to call me off my shirt. I'm like, are you asking people when they call you? Did you call me off of my shirt? You can't put a price on that. You can't put a price of having your logo on your vehicle, passing out 1 million cards, having a great website, having great social media presence, because it's all customer journey.
Such a good example. I love that. The logo on the shirt. I like that.
But it's true. That's what it is. It's brand recognition. Yeah. FedEx doesn't ask, how many times did we get a call for a shipment off of the FedEx logo on our trucks? Why don't we just rip that off? Right. It's the same exact thing. It's branding. It's recognition. It gives us that. We often talk about the marketing environment. Everybody should come in and have that warm, fuzzy feeling of, oh, this is a nice brand. This makes me feel comfortable. They're legitimate. Oh, yeah. Same reason we grab Pepsi instead of a random brand that we've never heard of before when we go to a cooler. It's branding. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll add one thing to that, and I'll give an illustration here. Let's say you have John Smith, home inspector, okay, and you have, I don't know, David Smith, okay. John and David do the same thing, but David, he does social media, right? They go out and they get in front of real estate agents, right? And David's able to, the first one goes around and he does his, presentations. He talks to real estate agents. None of them have really heard of him before, right? Versus the other guy that goes around, he's done social media well enough. He's gotten in front of his community well enough that in a number of times that he's actually running into real estate agents that have heard him or seen him or seen his brand or content or something, and subconsciously picks it up, right? That conversion and that conversation between, he's going to have, Inspector 2 is going to have a much higher conversion rate. And what's hard about measuring the ROI is if that guy says, you know what, yeah, I think I've seen you before, or I've heard of you before, and he's open to sitting down with you. That's hard to measure because, maybe the illustration wasn't the best, but
no, it makes sense.
I got you.
I'm trying to get at.
It puts more juice into your other marketing is basically what it is. Right. It puts some nitrous in your gasoline. That how do you measure? Two guys doing the same other stuff. one guy just has an advantage because he's already been there. Well, this has been fantastic information. I can't tell you. We could go on. We could do 3 more podcasts on this because,
Oh, for sure.
yeah, I love this
Oh,
stuff
it's
just as
gonna
much as you guys, I think. But
Yeah.
again, if you want to learn more about Inspector Media, go to inspectormedia.com. We actually have a blog on our website that you can check out as well that Eric had written for us a few years back, and we have one on yours actually too. But they do a fantastic job. Even if you don't want to be a client, they're just full of great information and always willing to share it with the inspection community.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So Daniel, Michaela, thank you guys so much, and hopefully we'll get a chance to talk soon.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Ian.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.